This lecture explains some of the reasons, not all the reasons, but many of the reasons and the most important reasons to understand why we have such an overweight population in America. And without understanding the concept of toxicity and food addiction, people don't have the knowledge, the raw materials, the tools to take care of their problems with their weight. And many people know today that being overweight is not a cosmetic issue. It's not a question of looks. It's that fat on the body is an inflammatory substance. It increases your risk of cancer. It increases your risk of heart attack. It increases your risk of diabetes. It causes, in other words, fat on the body is a sign of ill health, and you can't be overweight and healthy. So, and there's legitimate and explainable reasons why people become overweight. So we reviewed yesterday that foods obviously give us two types of nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients. And we need some macronutrients, but Americans are eating about a third or a half too many macronutrients. We need too many calories. We need to eat less fat, less carbohydrate, and less protein. But we have to be choosy now between the type of fat, the type of carbohydrate, and the type of protein we eat. Because my message today to you is that it's choosing the wrong type of fat, the wrong type of carbohydrate, and the wrong type of protein that makes the person desire to overconsume calories. Now, we know, of course, that we need micronutrients. And the micronutrients, of course, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. That nutritarians, and most of the current world today, everybody's telling people we have to eat more fruits and vegetables, right? They're saying eat less processed foods, eat less animal products, and eat more fruits and vegetables. And nobody can really disagree with that, right? And I'm not quite saying the same thing. I'm not saying just eat more fruits and vegetables, add it on to your other foods, right? I'm saying make the foods that are high in micronutrients, the vegetables, the fruits, the beans, nuts, and seeds, make that the cornerstone. Make that the center of your diet. Make that the majority of what you eat. And everything you eat that's not a fruit or vegetable or bean or nut or seed should be almost a minuscule part of your diet, or not even be in the diet. So the point here is that we eat large amounts of these foods that are rich in micronutrients. It suppresses the appetite. It makes us be in contact, get the connection back between the amount of calories we need, and our bodies will then give us the right signals. And so this presentation is about recognizing those signals, how to get back in touch with those signals of how much to eat. And if you do that, your body will give you the tools and the messages to get to your ideal weight. And it knows what's the best weight for you if you listen to it properly. I don't know the best weight for you. You don't even know the best weight for you. Your body knows. And we're going to tell the body, we're going to let you know how to allow your body to give you that message, okay? So of course, I know this is review, but that your healthy life expectancy is dependent on the micronutrients you consume. As humans, we have a huge requirement for micronutrients. Matter of fact, scientists have videotaped monkeys in the woods and jungles in Africa, videotaping, measuring the weight and the substance and analyzing everything they eat. And they do that for a period of many months, and they take it back to the laboratory, and they study it for years, analyzing everything that goes into the monkey's body. And you know what they find? That the average monkey, let's say a spider monkey, per pound will consume 15 times as much micronutrients as the average American will consume in their diet, right? Not 2 times, not 3 times, huge amounts more of micronutrients. And had we lived in a natural environment, we'd be consuming huge amounts of micronutrients from very rich natural plant food that's micronutrient rich. So this is all about the fact that when you're healthy, you eat a diet with a high micronutrient per calorie ratio, and that automatically lowers your desire for calories. So we're going into the science now of how micronutrient adequacy suppresses the desire to overeat. That's what the theme of this lecture is about. We're primates, right? We should be consuming not twice as much nutrients as other Americans consume. We really require, as species, to really prevent cancer to occur and to have a really prolonged life, we need 10 times as much micronutrients as the average American consumes. We don't have to just double it. We got to get way up there. And to get up there, you have to know how to get your nutrient levels high. You have to know what foods are high in micronutrients, because we need those levels of nutrients so the mechanisms that repair broken DNA crosslinks, that detoxify the body, that support immune function, and that give you the signals, put you back in touch with true hunger to let you know the amount of calories, how much you need to eat, and give you the health to make food even taste better. All that's dependent on whether you have attained micronutrient adequacy. Now, this was a slide I actually pulled out of my book, Eat to Live, which was published in 2003. So this slide gave the nutrient density line instead of a scoring system, which I didn't have back then, just based on what foods have the highest nutrient density. And it worked pretty well. People did very well without even knowing the numbers, because this, of course, they realized that I put in the unlimited category on top green vegetables, all raw vegetables, non-starchy cooked vegetables, which include foods like onions, mushrooms, eggplants, tomatoes, things that are vegetables that are non-starchy. And you know what we found in those years? We found, well, wow, look at all the studies showing how tomatoes prevent breast cancer and prostate cancer. Look at all the studies showing how onions are protective against colon cancer and ovarian cancer. Look at all the studies that show that mushrooms are so protective against all these cancers, that the non-starchy cooked vegetables and the green vegetables, that combination of food, even though they're highest in micronutrients, they also have additional factors, not even measured by the traditional micronutrients, but they have additional factors that are always being discovered, heightening and elevating their status as cancer protective superfoods. And now we're going to talk about beans, and with the idea here that beans are the preferred carbohydrate source for a nutritarian, and why that's the case, okay? Now, if you took a can of beans and you looked on the back of the can, it might say beans, it might say Azuki beans or red kidney beans, 175 calories a cup or 200 calories a cup, right? Now the question here is that really 200 calories a cup? It says it on the can? What do you guys think? It's not. You know why it's not? Because those calories are not biologically accessible to the human body. Even though a bean is mostly carbohydrate, like 80% carbohydrate. Half the carbohydrate in bean is called resistant starch. The word resistant means it's not easily broken down or digested. So we have half that carbohydrate in bean is called resistant starch that the body doesn't have the enzymes to break down into glucose or fructose like other starchy vegetables or other starchy sources of starch. Instead, the starch from beans travels down the small intestines, gets to the end of the small intestines, the early part of the colon, and is acted on by bacteria. And these bacteria break down the starch in beans into fat. They convert these resistant starches into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. So the bean it has such a low glycemic index, it doesn't raise the glucose level much, because half the starch isn't broken down to sugar or carbohydrate or glucose, it's broken down to fat. But it's broken down into fat so far down in the digestive tract, close to the end of the small intestines into the colon, that 90% of those fats don't even get absorbed into the bloodstream. The calories are lost to digestion. But the short-chain fatty acids, and the most prominent one is called butyrate, have an anti-inflammatory protective effect on the wall of the colon to make your stool pass out gently and smoothly, and to prevent the formation of diverticulum and to prevent colon cancer. The bacteria also produce beneficial nutrients that have anti-cancer effects and immune-supporting effects as well. So you may have trouble digesting beans when you first start eating them, but that's because your body hasn't built up enough of those beneficial bacteria to break down the resistant starches. It's the resistant starches that cause all that gas, but if you ate a small amount of beans on a regular basis, over time, you would be fueling or feeding those bacteria to proliferate, and your body would become, over time, a better bean digester. I know it's a lot of fun to make all that gas, but unfortunately, we don't have fun anymore. We're so used to eating beans. And let me go forward a slide just to show you the numbers here on beans. Let's compare beans to other sources of carbohydrate for a minute here, okay? Because the first number is how much grams of fiber are contained in 100 grams. Like what? In other words, how much fiber are in these carbohydrate foods? And let's look at this, because you know, corn and split peas are pretty high in fiber too, pretty decent, right? But beans clearly win the prize. They're an amazing amount of fiber. They're almost half fiber by weight, right? More fiber than any other food. Fiber is very important because those fibers feed the bacteria in the digestive tract. They hold water. They make your stool keep the water content in your stool, prevent hemorrhoids, constipation, give you a good fast transit time, keep things moving through you at a nice rate. But fiber is very beneficial. And then if we combine the fiber with the percent of starch in the bean that's resistant, look at the numbers there, the fiber plus resistant starch. Black beans, red kidney beans, Azuki beans, navy beans, black-eyed peas, lentils, all those things have a huge amount of resistant starch in them, which means that resistant starch is a superfood. And you know, beans are a food that's linked to enhanced longevity in the elderly. The elderly who eat beans on a regular basis become the super elderly. They live a long time. So now I'll ask you that question again. When you eat 200 calories of beans, those 200 calories were measured in a laboratory by a calorimeter. They're not measured inside the body. How many calories do you think you're really getting if you take in 200 calories from beans? A considerable less amount. Probably closer to 125, 130 calories out of the 200 calories. But here's the thing. You feel like you ate 200 calories or more. Let me explain this. Because the brain didn't know at the point when you ate them, it's only going to absorb 120 calories from those 200 calories. The feedback loop to the brain gives you the sensation you had the full 200 calories. So now we can go through this slide. The resistant starch in beans. Everybody know what resistant starch is now? The starch in beans, not easy to digest. It promotes the sensation of fullness in the stomach. So the combination of the fiber and the resistant starch sends a sensory message to the brain that it occupied a lot of space in the stomach because it sucks up water and occupies space. And it makes you feel that you're full and you don't want to eat. Now, when the short-chain fatty acids are absorbed in the distal part of the small intestines, those fatty acids actually have the effect to retard glycolysis. The word glycolysis means the breakdown of stored glucose in the body. When we take in glucose from an apple, we store it away in the body for later use when we need the glucose, right? And we're burning up that glucose. And beans slow down the breakdown of that glucose, so it keeps you not being hungry for a longer period of time once you ate the bean. The short-chain fatty acids in beans have also been shown to enhance lipolysis. Lipolysis is the breakdown of fat from the body. So not only do beans not contain as many calories as they're supposed to contain, but the calories they do contain have an effect to make you burn fat and conserve glucose, which essentially means it makes you lose weight. So they lower the glucose level, they improve insulin sensitivity, they slow the breakdown and utilization of glycogen, which increases the amount of fat you're going to burn. You're burning more fat for energy instead of glucose, the glycogen stored in the liver. It promotes the production of good bacteria and suppresses the bad bacteria. We have pounds of bacteria that live in our gut. And do you know we have more cells that are made up of bacteria in the body than we actually have cells made up of human tissue? And those bacteria have functions that are important. And those important functions can hurt you as well as help you. And they hurt you if those bacteria grow and proliferate being fed off junk food, because you get junk food bacteria. When you eat greens, when you eat mushrooms, when you eat onions, and when you eat raw vegetables, you fuel the development of healthy bacteria. And you know what? These good bacteria that are fed from consuming green vegetables and beans have myrosinase activity to them. Do you know what that means, myrosinase activity? That's one of the words you're supposed to learn this week. Some of you guys must have known that. Myrosinase is the heat-sensitive enzyme in the cell wall of green vegetables that manufacture the anti-cancer isothiocyanates, the ITCs, as we're chewing the vegetables. Now the beans, when you eat beans and greens, when you eat these foods, it promotes the growth of the healthy bacteria and the best bacteria that actually aid in the digestion of the food you eat. So the bacteria that live in our digestive tract have a positive, beneficial, and actually necessary function to help us digest food better. And we only have the better healthy bacteria that produce the nutrients in our tissues when we eat the right food to grow them. It's like putting the right fertilizer in your backyard soil to grow the right vegetables. You're putting the right fertilizer in your digestive tract to fuel the right bacteria. They soften stool, they promote bowel regularity. Yikes, I can go through this whole lecture just talking about beans. It's amazing. I got to get going to the other stuff. It binds cholesterol in the gut and other fats in the large intestines for removal. It reduces fat storage after the meal. It increases the breakdown of fat from the body, and it protects against the development of colon cancer. Are you understanding why beans are a preferred carbohydrate source over something like a potato? A white potato might do the opposite, right? Because a white potato has little resistant starch and little fiber, and in fact, the studies show that it raises the glucose level, has a high glycemic effect, and when people switch from eating white potatoes to a food that's higher with more fiber and resistant starch, their glucose goes down, their diabetes risk goes down, tremendously so. So moving on, so we're going to leave beans, moving on to nuts and seeds. And this lecture is about weight loss, and I want everybody to understand that many people who've successfully lost 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds on a nutritarian diet following my program, right? And some of these people are even here today, right? They found that their weight loss may have been halted or inhibited by a diet that was too low in fat. And when you eat the right fats, you've put back nuts and seeds in the diet, their weight loss continued. Just like beans speed up lipolysis, a diet too low in fat could slow down lipolysis and inhibit weight loss. So we're saying here that multiple studies have shown that nuts and seeds are associated with long-term weight loss and reduced risk of developing diabetes. And for every 1 or 2 ounces, and that says 1 to 2 ounces of raw nuts and seeds a day prevents overeating. That's if you have a lot of weight to lose. That would be for a woman about 1 ounce a day of nuts and seeds, and for a man about 2 ounces a day of nuts and seeds. And they lower the rate of gallstones formation in people who lose weight. One of the risks of losing weight rapidly is gallstone formation. And that risk could be heightened if your diet is too low in fat. And I think the reason why I have so many thousands of people all over the country who've lost dramatic amounts of weight relatively quickly and the instance of gallstones formation has been infinitesimally small was because of the inclusion of nuts and seeds in the diet compared to other weight loss studies and other people losing weight in other methods. Right? Now, hunger is multidimensional, right? It's not just based on one thing. The volume, if you want to feel like you eat something in your stomach, the human stomach can hold about 1 liter of food, and 1 liter of healthy, natural foods may be between 300 to 500 calories, but you can't fit that much food in, that many calories in at one time when you're eating natural foods. But the micronutrients also feed back to the brain and control your desire for food. And you want these foods to take up volume in your stomach, and natural foods have a high water content, and they have a type of fiber, right? The type of fibers that hold on to the water. They hold on to the water in the stomach while the food's being digested. And that combination of the fiber and the water they hold makes you feel satiated or full. So it prevents you from eating too many calories. So raw vegetables, like especially raw vegetables, when you chew them up, like snow pea pods, and shredded beets, and shredded carrots, and tomatoes, and cabbage, and fennel, and of course, green vegetables, and the non-green vegetables, like peppers, and onions, and cauliflower, and mushrooms, and eggplant, that these foods are all very high-volume foods. And I put them up on the board here because a lot of people want to lose weight. And we all have different metabolic rates. For some people, they require much less calories than other people require, right? They have a slower metabolic rate. This slower metabolic rate that they genetically inherited from their parents and their ancestors is a genetic asset. Because had they lived years ago when food wasn't so available, they would have survived when there was very little food around. But in today's society, a person with a slower metabolic rate who gains weight easier also has a genetic advantage because they can eat less food and not become too thin. And if they maintain a normal weight with a slow metabolic rate, the slower metabolic rate represents a slowing of the aging process. And this person who's naturally overweight, who's easily overweight on American food, who now is at a heightened risk of cancer and heart attack and dementia because fat is an inflammatory disease-producing substance, if they ate properly to maintain a normal weight with exercise and fitness, they'd be strong, they'd have great vibrancy and energy, and they would be the person who'd be living past 100 years old. This person who's naturally overweight would be the person with the genetic benefit, who could be the person who has the genetic potential to live longer than everybody else if they ate the right diet for them. All right, so moving on, volume plays a role, and if you're overweight, then you particularly have to seek out foods that are rich in volume because it'll help you feel satisfied with less calories. That's why, I always say that if you're shipwrecked on a desert island, right, and you had no processed foods, no oils, no cheeses, no concentrated calories. Look, you can put probably 3,000, you can go to a fast food restaurant and throw in 4,000 calories into that 1 liter of food space, right? But if you're on a desert island like Gilligan's Island, you know what Gilligan's Island is, right? I used to watch it as a kid all the time. Well, you couldn't put that many calories in if you're searching for food in the woods. I always had this desire to be shipwrecked on a desert island one day with just a knife. My great vacation, one year I got to do this, just like forage in the woods to see if you could find food. But I figured out over time that it would be very hard to become overweight if you lived on that island, right? And that's how we know, I finally figured it out, that Skipper never really lived on the island. So there's nutrient, the stomach has stretch receptors, the intestines, the small intestines even have nutrient receptors, even micronutrient receptors. The brain gets a sense for what you're eating, and like it has micronutrient receptors, it also has receptors when calories are flooded very rapidly through the wall of the digestive tract, foods with a high caloric density. Your brain knows it, it reacts to it, and that sets the stage for addictive food cravings and addictions. Because just like it could sense the good stuff, it could sense the bad stuff. And when it senses the bad stuff, like cocaine, you feel a high, right? You feel a dopaminergic stimulation of the brain, right? And you kind of feel good, but that feeling good also results in you feeling uncomfortable or pain down the road. Anything that's addictive makes you temporarily feel good, but then you pay the price because you feel bad down the road, right? So let's assume you were drinking 10 cups of coffee a day. If you stop coffee, and some people come to these getaways or come to the Whole Foods immersion programs that I run, and they're just stopping coffee on the spot, right, that week. And they feel like really they're feeling terrible, woozy and lightheaded and weak and fatigued. And some people actually have sore throats. Some actually have fevers. They stop their fast foods right onto a nutritarian diet. They're feverish. I used to think, a long time ago that they're getting viral infections, but now it happens all the time. They get a high fever. They can't swallow, they can't get out of bed, they're going through really strong withdrawal. You guys aren't people feeling sick, or you guys are probably not that unhealthy coming in, right? Yeah. All right. People glad you're feeling well. So if you stopped drinking coffee, obviously you feel bad. That's called withdrawal or detoxification, right? Now I can make you feel better from the coffee withdrawal headaches. I can take those headaches away by just giving you more coffee again. Have you drink a cup every hour, or maybe give you a pill with caffeine in it to take the place of the coffee. Or I can give you medication for your headaches. I can give you Esket, Wygain, Vanquish, Excedrin, Furanol, Furoset, Midrin, drugs whose active ingredients are barbiturates, narcotics, and caffeine to make you feel better. But feeling better isn't getting better. Feeling better is getting worse. Feeling worse is getting better. That's not funny. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying when the body is repairing and healing, it's feeling worse, not feeling better. Look, if you were a fireman and you walked into a burning building and you start inhaling smoke, you start coughing. Well, the coughing is good. It's a symptom to protect the soot from settling into the lung tissue, right? If you get a viral infection and you spike a high fever and you get a cough and a runny nose, well, that's good because the fever demarginates the white blood cells. That means it removes the white blood cells from their resting spots, puts them into action against the microbe, makes the brain secrete interferon, which heightens your immune defenses. The mucus production helps wash away the dead virus particles and dead cells being produced. In other words, you go to a restaurant, get food poisoned, and you start having diarrhea and vomiting. Well, that's good you're having the diarrhea and vomiting. That's protective. What I'm saying here is that symptoms are the body's active efforts to protect you against some disease, protect the cells, to keep their pristine, native integrity and cleanliness. Our own human intelligence thinks we know better than the body, and we're going to suppress those symptoms with a cough medicine or a fever reducer, right? Animals that are genetically defective and can't spike fevers die off in the first few years of life, right? The fever is an inherent protective mechanism. The point I'm making here is that symptoms are a friend. If you even look up in the medical textbook that all doctors read, called Robbins and Cotran, The Basis of Pathology. It says right there in the first chapter, a beautifully written book, really thick, beautifully written book. It says the inflammatory response is closely intertwined with the process of repair. Inflammation serves to destroy, dilute, or wall off the injurious agent, but in turn sets into motion a complex series of events that as much as possible heals and reconstitutes the damaged tissue. Isn't that beautifully written in that book, like that? So the point is that doctors learn that inflammation and the body has protective effects. They forget that as they go into practice, and only see drugs as the only answer. But here's the point. When you establish the optimal environment for healing, your body becomes a miraculous self-healing machine. But what does this have to do with weight loss? What do you think? Why am I telling you this? Well, the inflammatory substances and the withdrawal and discomfort and the pain is called detoxification or withdrawal. And that's what occurs in people. And the discomfort, the withdrawal that comes from their rich diet, from their low nutrient diet, from the toxins and toxicity that builds up from low nutrient eating, causes withdrawal symptoms that makes them feel uncomfortable. And just like caffeine relieves it, eating relieves it. And because eating makes it go away, they constantly have to eat to control the withdrawals. Now, I can make you feel good. I can do a lot of stuff with you with medicines to make you feel better, to take away symptoms. But taking away symptoms isn't improving your health, right? I can actually give you a medication to make you go to sleep or to make you give you more energy. I can give you a natural substance, like an herbal product from the health food store, to make you urinate more, to make you urinate less, to put you to sleep, to wake you up, to make your heart beat faster, to make your heart beat slower, to make, but the efficacy of the natural product is proportional to its toxicity. Same as a drug. Did you follow that? Yeah. The effectiveness is, it's not working because of its nutritive component. Nutritive components have no pharmacologic effects. When you eat broccoli, you don't feel better. You feel nothing. If it made you feel better, it must be bad for you. That's called stimulation. So if you come up to me after the lecture and say, well, I was terrible. I was fatigued. I felt terrible until I got this super drink. And I got this super drink imported from Tanzania, from a tree that nobody knows about, grown underground, under the sand, harvested by a crab. And it gives me so much energy. I feel great. I couldn't get out of bed before that. Take away my pain in my shoulder. It's like magic. And I'm saying, oh my goodness, there's something toxic in that. There's some pharmacologic effect. Because healthy substances shouldn't do that to people. Only pharmacologic or toxic things can do that. So think about this. Anything that makes you feel, that takes away all your problems has to have some noxious element to it. And the whole purpose here is we want to live our lives in a manner so we're healthy because we've earned it, so we avoid the need for medicinal substances, either pharmacologic or natural. Let's now segue now into why this has everything to do with weight loss, and this is why people gain weight. When we eat foods that are low in nutrients, we take in calories, right, that don't have the associated antioxidants and phytonutrients, then we build up free radicals, because to process calories, to process that potato, to process that apple, the nutrients supplied in that food help the cells reduce the free radicals that are produced from the digestive process that's burning energy. The metabolism of that energy from that food requires nutrients. And we take in foods with no nutrients, we draw on our nutrient reserves, we go into a negative deficit, and then we pump up free radicals and other toxins develop. And an important toxin, which you're learning about this week, is called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Because the AGEs in your body are measurable. They're measurable with new scientific tests and techniques. And the AGEs determine your biological age. So we can measure whether if you're really 50 years old, or you were born 50 years ago, well, are you more like a 30-year-old and you have AGE content in your body? Or are you more like an 80-year-old because your AGE content is so high? And you know that they've now recognized that AGEs are the major toxin responsible for the diabetic to become blind, for the damage of the eye, for the nerves to be damaged in their legs because they can't feel their feet anymore, right? Their kidney to go bad, and they develop kidney failure, are mostly the result of the buildup of advanced glycation end products from the high glucose levels circulating. And as you have that high glucose level circulating, especially when you consume glucose calories with no associated micronutrients, you build up these toxins. You build up these toxins, and now you eat this meal, and you're in this anabolic phase. Now, here's the words I want you to learn today. There are two particular words I want you to know at this conference, and those words are anabolic and catabolic, the two words I want you to learn this week. The word anabolic means you're taking substance in from the outside world, and you're turning it into human tissue. So it's building up. The word anabolic means to build. You're breaking down food, and you're making it into you, and that's the anabolic phase. You eat a meal, and you see how that curve goes up? The glucose curve rises. That's an anabolic phase where that bump goes up. You're taking in the glucose from the meal, and you're turning it into glycogen, and you're storing that glycogen in the muscle tissues and in the liver. Part of that glucose you're burning for energy. I'm talking here, I'm burning glucose. You're sitting there listening to me, you're burning glucose. Matter of fact, as you're sitting there listening to me, 80% of your caloric needs are being utilized by the brain, and the brain can only function on glucose. So as you're at rest, you're burning about 50 calories an hour at rest, and about 40 of those calories being utilized by the brain. And the brain can't function on fat. It's not burning off your waste fat. It's living off the stored glucose that you built up in the anabolic phase. Now here's the thing. In the anabolic phase, your body is busily metabolizing and storing calories. It's not efficient detoxifying and doing repair and healing in the anabolic phase. When you finish digesting and the calories you ate are now stored away in the body, now you're going into a catabolic phase. The word catabolic means to break down. You're breaking down the nutrients you stored in the anabolic phase, right? And as you're breaking down fat and breaking down glycogen and releasing the substance of whether in the tissues for utilization of the body, that's when the body is in a heightened phase of detoxification, healing, and rest. So you're detoxifying most effectively in the resting phase, the burning phase, or the catabolic phase, not the building phase. The more you can live your life in a catabolic phase, the more you're healing, you're resting, and repairing. The more you live your life in an anabolic phase, the more you're building, active, growing, and aging. Okay, so here's what happens. You're in this anabolic phase, and you're eating an American diet, which doesn't supply you with adequate nutrients, and you enter the catabolic phase. What happens to people when they enter the minute they stop digesting food? They feel detox symptoms, like they just stopped coffee, because these toxic metabolites that we get when we don't eat healthfully, that build up in our tissues, are just as addicting as caffeine, as cocaine, as smoking cigarettes, and they make us feel ill when we enter the catabolic phase. So when we enter that catabolic phase, we start to get headachy, we feel weak, we get stomach cramping, we feel fatigue. It's so funny when people say to me, oh, I gotta eat before I go to the gym, I'm too tired to work out. You don't need food for fatigue, you don't need food for energy to work out, right? You have plenty of storage of calories on your body. You shouldn't a symptom of hunger is not fatigue. The fatigue is a symptom of detoxification. You wouldn't feel fatigue from the lack of calories if you were healthy. I can get hungry, I can skip lunch, see patients, finish at 5 o'clock, hungry for dinner, and a friend will call me up on the phone and say, hey Joel, you wanna go play a game of tennis? I'll say, sure, I'll go play tennis for 2 hours. Because I know that I'd rather play tennis than eat, number one. But also that if I'm actually working out, running, bike climbing, mountain biking, or playing tennis, or doing whatever I am, that the hunger goes away when you're physically active anyway. And then when I'm done with the activity, hunger will come back. Not a big deal. You don't get fatigue. Fatigue, irritability, moody, anxious. People gotta get food. They can't tolerate, their stomach starts fluttering, they get all these symptoms of healing and detox, which are actually probably better if they let them go on, but the problem is they're so full of toxins that they can't tolerate the mobilization of toxins, because when the body has this opportunity, it's going to mobilize the toxins from the storage sites, and your fat supply is your garbage dump of the body, which attracts all these fat-soluble toxins, including cancerous substances and pollution in the fat supply. And also the bad fats that you ate for the last 10 years, meaning the bad fats that raise cholesterol and cause heart disease, are stored on your fat. That's animal fat you've got on you. That's not vegetable fat. That's not sunflower seeds there, right? So as you're breaking down that fat, you're living off of meat fat, animal fat. It's not a healthy substance. We got to get rid of that to get you back eating on the healthy fats. So you still have a big source of animal fat on your body. You can't be healthy. So here's the point here. We're in this phase here. We enter the catabolic phase, and people feel like they got to eat food. They can't tolerate not eating all the time. And a lot of people call it hypoglycemia, because a lot of animal protein causes the buildup of nitrogenous wastes, like uric acid in the tissues. And people feel totally mentally out of it as the nitrogenous wastes start to enter their tissues. And how do they relieve that? They eat another high-protein meal, right? They think they can't ever, they're addicted to animal protein. They're addicted to a high-protein diet because they don't feel well if the body's not busy and overworked digesting. So here's how they solve this. Here's how every American solves this problem. Here's how all the diet books solve the problem. Here's how every woman's magazine article you see on the, frequent feeding, right? Multiple small meals a day, eat 20 times a day, eat 50 times a day, keep eating all day long, keep putting food in your mouth every second, never stop eating. Sit there and never leave the table. Just stay there at the dinner table all day and just eat all day long. I call it the cake diet, The cake diet, because everything's cake, right? Cake is like sugar and flour and oil and salt, whatever mixed together, right? And then you got cake, you got like cakes with not as much sugar in them, they call them bread. They call them like, they're just a little less sugar. It's like a bagel or a croissant. More butter in the cake, just change the recipe a little, it's a croissant. Make it small, it's a cupcake. Put some sauce over it, it's like pasta cake. But it's just flour and, I don't know. Have it for breakfast, and make it nude without the topping, and call it a muffin. Still cake, right? They got to keep eating their cake. They got to keeping their sugar up. They got to keep eating all the time. Or they can solve it another way. If they don't want to eat all the time, frequently eating all day long, they can probably eat a really big meal with lots of oil, grease, melted cheese on top, maybe a burger with a cheese, eat a lot of calories. So it's so hard to digest and takes so long to digest that keep the digestive process going for about 4 hours. And as soon as that digestive process stops, and you then go right into another big meal again of heavy, calorie-dense, rich foods, so you can prevent you ever from entering the catabolic phase. You getting this? So let me ask, if you got this, let me ask you a question then. Let me see if you got this, because I'm sure you guys got it. But when I tell this stuff to regular people, they can't get it. Their brains are so preoccupied with everything they learned their whole life that it takes them so long to grasp these simple concepts because people are so brainwashed by what they're raised with these ideas of what they're raised on, So and by the way, people who eat more frequently wind up consuming more calories at the end of the day than people who eat less frequently. So the idea that we're going to eat less calories by eating more frequent, smaller meals, that's ridiculous. But let's say you ate the same amount of calories. Let's say we put a group of animals in a cage or in a pen, and we fed them 100,000 calories a month, right? And they lived X amount of years. Now we take another group of animals, and instead of feeding them 100,000 calories a month, we feed them just 75,000 calories a month. And because they eat less food, they live 1.5x. Much longer than the first group ate because we fed them less calories. That's easy, right? Now in this group 3 and third group, we're going to feed them 75,000 calories a month, the same as group 2. But instead, in group 3, we're going to feed them larger amounts but less frequently, increasing the space or timing between the meals. So the first group, even though it's the same amount of calories, right? Same quality and quantity of the food. Now which group lived longer? Group 2 or group 3? The group that ate smaller amounts more frequently, or the group that ate larger amounts less frequently? Right. So you guys all answered group 3. And must be because you guys must have heard some of this before. Okay. But of course, here's the point, is that most Americans think the answer is group 2. And even after I explain a lot of it, everybody will say, group 2, you know what I mean? We're so brainwashed, but here's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying something completely different. I'm saying we want to live our life in the catabolic phase more. You got that? We don't want to be in an anabolic phase all the time. You want to eat some food, and you want to go without eating for a long time until you're really hungry again. And what does the title of this slide say? The pleasure of true hunger. Well, why does it say the pleasure of true hunger? Because let's finish off this slide now, okay? It's a kind of a complicated slide because you remember the word glycolysis means we're breaking down the glycogen that was stored in the anabolic phase. And now glycolysis occurs, and it's a detoxification phase. And we shouldn't have, I labeled this term toxic hunger to represent the shakiness, the weakness, the fatigue, the headache, the ill feelings people have when they're unhealthy and don't eat a healthy diet. And they feel like they got to eat food again. And those symptoms, the point is that when you eat healthy enough, after a few months, you lose the sensations of toxic hunger. Goes away, you're no longer hungry. And how do you feel what do you feel in the catabolic phase? Nothing. You feel fine. You live your life. You perform, you live, you have fun, you grow. And then it gets to a point where the glycogen that was stored gets used up. And the glycogen, the glucose produced from that glycogen would drop, and the brain would not get enough glucose. And you might feel woozy, lightheaded, weak. Is that to happen? No, of course not. The body has another way it can make glucose if you don't eat. The body has a secondary source of glucose it could make when the glycogen is gone or starts to fall down. It makes glucose for the brain by breaking down muscle tissue. You can't make glucose for the brain from fat. The glucose can only come from muscle tissue. Do you think that the brain and the body wants you to break down muscle tissue? It actually prefers you not to break down muscle tissue. That's more of an emergency fuel. So what do you think happens before you start to break down muscle tissue? Here, I'll show you. True hunger, right. And here's the point. This is because the body's got this brilliant mechanism set up, right? It gives you a signal to eat before you break down muscle tissue. Now, true hunger, which is felt in the mouth and throat and the tongue, and makes food taste incredibly good, because the main symptom of true hunger is a dramatic enhancement in taste sensation. Here's the thing, is that true hunger doesn't exist to put fat on your body. It only exists to protect your lean body mass. So true hunger becomes a precise computer within 25 calories a day to direct you to the exact amount of food you need to eat to maintain your lean body mass, not to put fat on you. So what's the perfect weight for you? What's the perfect weight for me? I don't know, but my body sure does know, because when I eat when I'm hungry and I don't eat when I'm not hungry, you maintain the healthiest weight for you to maintain your best health of a long, healthy life. And this is what studies on super longevity individuals show, that those people who achieve super longevity have maintained a stable high school or early college weight through their entire life, and it never went up and never changed up or down a pound, right? You don't gain weight with aging. So take my body as an example, because I've weighed the same weight for maybe, I'm 56 years old. So I've weighed the same weight since I'm 18 years old. I haven't changed a pound up and down. How many years is that? 38 years? So let's say so here's the point. I'm sitting in my office seeing patients, maybe not exercising for maybe 4 days in a row sometimes. How come I don't gain weight? How come my weight doesn't go up a pound or down a pound in 35 years? Because when I'm seeing patients, not exercising much, what happens? You burning this glycolysis goes on longer, and I don't get hungry till a much later point. And my amount of calories I consume goes down so incredibly low because I don't feel like eating. Or now I go away skiing, and I'm skiing moguls all day long, so I don't even want to stop for lunch, or I'll have some nuts in my pocket or something, and I'm burning a huge amount of calories. How come I didn't lose 5 pounds? Well, because I shortened glycolysis, I burned up those calories, and I got hungry more frequently. You follow that? Or I overate a little bit at dinner the night before, and I wake up the next morning, and with resting and not having done a lot of exercise the day before, I'm not hungry for breakfast, so I'll skip breakfast because I ate more at dinner. In other words, your body is very exacting in directing you to the precise amount of calories you need. And if I exercise a lot, my body will direct me to the exact amount of calories I need to maintain that amount of muscle mass to be commensurate, or to match the exercise demands I placed on my body. If I didn't exercise that much, I'd be a little slimmer, the muscles would not be as big, and I'd probably even in less calories. But the point is, the body directs you to the amount of calories it needs, depending on your physical requirements you place on it, and its needs to maintain its muscle tissue and integral functioning healthy tissue. Hunger will not be there to direct you to put fat on you. If you have gotten fat, and if you have a roll of fat on your waist, it's because you've eaten outside of the demands of true hunger, because of either recreational eating or because of what I call toxic hunger. So the reason why diets don't work is because that's like telling you to eat less food while your body is demanding more food. You can't be long-term success if your body's saying eat and you're trying to fight it saying not eat, right? Because also eating is pleasurable and you want to eat. And if the body's telling you to eat because you're in pain, it's pretty hard to stop eating when you're in pain and the pain is relieved by food. And and here I'm saying that food is an addictive substance, and it's addictive, and I'm giving you one of the aspects of addiction. Even addiction has multiple factors in it, right? We talked about the fact that the brain craves concentration here, right? The brain craves concentration, like sweeteners and salt and oils are powerfully addictive. And as you take in concentrated fat rushes into the bloodstream, because don't forget, when you eat a natural fat, like a nut or a seed, it doesn't rush into the bloodstream. The fat is fed into the bloodstream very slowly. You have to extract the oil out of the walnut. You have to extract the oil out of the avocado. You have to get the fat to enter the bloodstream in a rush, to spike up a high caloric rush to the brain, you got to extract it out of the food. So to get a dopamine hit, so the food manufacturers learned about this through trial and error with lab animals. They learned how they could make lab animals want to eat more food and they could turn animals into food addicts by putting sweeteners and salt and oil together. And that's why they'll add sugar into the McDonald's hamburgers, right? They'll add sugar into the recipes of burgers at the fast food restaurants. That's where they'll add salt into Coca-Cola, and they'll add salt into the Pepsi. They won't tell you the formula. They'll put salt to make you want to drink more, right? They'll put MSG in. They know what they have to do, and that's just why artificial sweeteners also cause weight gain, because it stimulates the brain to eat more food, and maybe even not getting the calories from the artificial sweetener, even though it's producing the pancreas to produce more insulin, still having negative effects on you. It's also signaling the brain to produce more dopamine and to produce you to want to eat more food and giving you a high, and it's still addictive. But it's why they want to high sweeteners, extra salt and oil and everything to make people want to eat more food so they can sell you more product, right? The food manufacturers aren't designed to make you healthy. It's the opposite. They're designed to make you eat more so you can consume more of the products to sell more food. So obesity equals 2S plus O. You know what that means, right? Sweeteners, salt, and oil. That's a secret formula for obesity. It's a secret. Don't tell anybody. But the funny thing is that they don't have to do it on, the food manufacturers that have kept this a secret don't test out and don't use animals anymore for their testings. They could test people. They know what sells the best, they know what makes people eat them more, and the sizes of their food, like the Bigger Macs and the Super Big Macs and the Super Whopper Bigger Mackers, whatever, keep getting bigger and bigger. Soon we have to come up to with an SUV to fill it up with food. It's like people are eating so much food, plane seats are getting bigger, right? Cars, anyway. So this slide says, diets don't work. You have to seek volume and nutrients first. That's the starting point on a diet. Starting point on a diet, we got to get rid of your toxic hunger. We got to get rid of your food addictions. You're never going to succeed on a diet unless you get rid of your food addictions. So what do you got to do first? You got to get some nutrients into your body. And animal protein, sugar, caffeine feed toxic hunger because you're going to feel withdrawal from the toxicity and from the toxins from those rich foods. It's like we learned in medical school, I think all doctors learn this, that when a person has cirrhosis of the liver, maybe they have alcoholic-related cirrhosis, the body can't tolerate animal protein well because the liver has to process the extra proteins. The nitrogenous waste have to be made water-soluble and excreted in the urine because the body can't store protein very well. And the excess protein we don't use has to be flushed out, or the uric acid could build up. We can get gout, we can get all kinds of problems. So what do you think happens to a person who has cirrhosis or a bad liver due to alcoholism? They can't get rid of the nitrogenous wastes. We have to feed them a low-protein diet. If we don't, they become encephalopathic and psychotic, which means psychotic. They become crazy. The extra nitrogenous wastes get pass through the blood-brain barrier and make you feel fuzzy and confused. And these people who think they're hypoglycemic are protein addicted. They can't stop their protein, and they say they called hypoglycemia. And because don't forget, what makes you feel better is what's causing the problem to begin with, right? Because feeling worse is getting better, and feeling better is getting worse. So the characteristics of true hunger, of course, are increased salivation, dramatically heightened taste sensation. We now prefer to wait till I'm hungry to eat. So if Linda, my dietitian, knocks on the door of my office and says to me, "Hey, Joel, I made this great Australian mushroom Spanish Oriental soup. You want to try some?" And I'll go, "Nah, save it for me for later. I'm not hungry right now." I would like to eat it and enjoy it when I'm hungry. Because we're saying here is that the symptom of hunger is dramatically heightened taste sensation, right? So the natural tendency of your body is to prefer not to eat. What if they open these doors open right now? They started wheeling in snacks for us right now. Oatmeal blueberry bars and everything else. For everybody wants some eat to food now? Come on, it's good stuff, but we don't want it now, right? We're going to want it when we're hungry. We'll enjoy it more. So let's look at I have some nice slides of some people who lost weight. Here's Rebecca. She lost 330 pounds. That's me holding up her dress, her old dress she used to wear. And she said it was like being let out of prison. And because food addiction is like a prison, and America is in prison right now. They're prisoners of their food addictions. Rebecca, she was really in prison, obviously, because when you're in a big body, you're not mobile. You can't do things. Your life is limited, right? Your life, you're not free to do what you want to do in your life and make your life productive. You don't feel well. And of course, you're at high risk of disease. And so many people have lost lots of weight, and they all say the same thing. These people have lost 150 pounds, 200 pounds, and more than 300 pounds, always say the same thing, that until they learned about the scientific nature of food addiction, they went from one diet to another, always fighting cravings and fighting the sensations to eat, never could succeed until their food addictions and cravings were removed by consuming a diet with adequate food, with nutrient adequacy. Without attention to micronutrient adequacy, just focusing on calories and points and eating smaller portions and smaller plates and all the other things, right? It's not going to work, or it's at least not going to work most of the time. And of course, he's down lower than 182 now. He lost more than 300 pounds by now. And he said, eat for health is not a diet. I'm not on a diet. It's not even about a weight. I'm just doing what's healthy for my body, and the results follow naturally. Because this isn't just about weight loss. The same teachings that I'm telling people how to lose weight are the same things those of us have to learn to extend our lifespan for super longevity. It's the same concepts, right? It's the same concept. It's living in the catabolic phase more. Ronnie Valentine is a great example. He lost 140 pounds in 1 year, right? A lot of weight to lose in 1 year. Did he diet? No. He just decided to turn his health around and get rid of his food addiction. You know, here's a guy who had bypass surgery. 4 years later, his bypassed vessels clogged back up again, and he had severe crushing chest pain. Rushed into the hospital, and they did an angioplasty on him. Within a week of the angioplasty, his vessels collapsed and he had chest pain again and couldn't walk a block. He was on $600 worth of out-of-pocket medical expenses for all the medications he was on. Out-of-pocket medical expenses. His total medical expenses to the drug company, to the insurance company, might have been thousands of dollars, right? A month of all these medications. And he was literally sent home to die. Nothing they could do for him anymore. So he Googled, reverse heart disease or something, and he came up with drfuhrman.com on the website. He joined our member center, and I've never met Ronnie in person. I've never met him in person. I've never met Scott in person either. Never met these people. They lost all this weight from reading the book and joining the member center or something, right? So Ronnie asked me questions, and he asked the doctor for him, how should I cut down on my medication? What should I do? And I said, Ronnie, don't even think about what to do. Don't think about what to eat. Don't make decisions about what to eat. Don't make choices. Just do what I tell you to do. Don't worry if you like it or not. If you don't like it, it's my problem. If you don't like the food, I'll make you like it, right? Give me a chance. Give it a chance, and you'll see what happens. Your disease will melt away. Will save your life, right? So what happened to Ronnie? His blood pressure went down to normal. His chest pains went away. He's playing tennis. He's lifting weights. He's got his life back. He lost 104 pounds. Look at him. He's got it, and he's very grateful. And he said, you not want anybody to go through what I've had to endure my struggle. You don't know what I'm just telling you half of it, what he had to go through, with pain and surgeries and all kinds of discomfort. His story is amazing. Read his story on diseaseproof.com. You guys know that diseaseproof.com is our blog site. We have some news we put up there. You heard of that site, diseaseproof.com? And we tell Ronnie's story up there where you could read, and Google Ronnie Valentine and read his whole story of what happened to him. It's an amazing story, of how he got his health back. But when I think about it, I think about he's just one guy, right? But what about all those thousands of people who are going through it every day, right? It's like you think about this, those two planes hit the World Trade Center and killed 2,000 people. Bang, they were all dead, right? And this is happening every day. What if there were two planes hitting the World Trade Center every single day that was going on, and we're doing nothing about it in this country? We just let it happen every day, right? It's like here, there are people, even though Ronnie is an incredible, should be on the front page of the New York Times, he should be interviewed, by 2020. They should be this scam of cardiology that's going on in America today, where people are suffering with procedures when they could get well through proper nutrition. It's this, horrible onslaught of tragic, should be illegal what they're doing to people who have cardiac problems when they can get well so easily. He should be all over the press. People like him. So when I think of Ronnie, I think about all those people who are suffering tragically, not knowing what else they can do, because they go to their doctor and they're just told, you need another procedure, you need a bypass surgery, you need more drugs, right? They're not told that they have the opportunity to get well. And Emily is here with us today. She's, right? And I put her face up there, and she's going to tell you more about her story tomorrow, I think. But I put her face up there so you could see it's not just about losing weight. It's about the quality of your life. It's about your health and your youthfulness and your vibrancy about life. Look at how much younger she looks. Look at how the space around the eyes opens up when you, right? So you look at how you could see the healthy glow in her skin. And so it's not just about losing weight, even though that is her mother on the right. Sorry about that, bad joke. And here's Adrian a person who was just in my office a month ago, and she actually came to see me exactly almost a year after she first started, and she lost 123 pounds in 1 year, which is not too much weight to lose when you do it right. So the point is that people, all these people, and Adrienne's been obese since she's 3 years old, all through high school, all through elementary school. She went to a cheerleader. They had to make her special custom-made cheerleading costumes. When she wanted to enter the school band, they had to make her a special. She had to always be singled out as being special and requiring special clothing because of her obesity her whole life. And now, obviously, and she never thought she could lose weight before. And just people like this who never thought they could lose weight before find it are successful and easy, and obviously she's still losing more weight, and so it's not unhealthy to lose weight quite effectively and rapidly. As a matter of fact, it's amazing how rapid the body actually puts itself back into better health if given the opportunity to. So obviously, we're talking here about the concepts of food addictions and food cravings that are caused by a standard diet, by a diet that's grain-based, especially because the grains consumed in America are mostly white flour and processed grains like corn flakes and cold cereals, sugars, sugar grains, the cake diet with oil on top, and animal products with added animal products. Instead of a vegetable-based diet based on natural foods, because when you focus on whole foods and not processed foods, right, it changes the biological availability of nutrients, and it changes the body's desire to overeat. And we get back connected with the amount of calories we need, and I've attempted to prove this and publish it in a medical study. And the study we just completed, we surveyed, that was approved by the IRB board of the University of Southern California, and in conjunction with researchers at the University of Southern California, we did a study where we interviewed 700 participants. How many of you in the audience were interviewed for this study? Some of you might have been part of the study. And the results found that over 90% of people, that's 90% of 90%ers, meaning that people who ate this way 90% of the time, that 90% of those people reported a changed perception of hunger, losing their drive to overeat, replacing the symptoms of hunger as a stomach and a head sensation and an irritability with what we call true hunger. And over 500 people reported the loss of the addictive drive to overeat, and this is now being reviewed to be submitted and to be published in a medical journal shortly. And obviously, research is the key to having society change, because society viewpoints governs people's beliefs, and people don't believe this stuff. You know, they'll believe anything told to them by the doctor because it's the way they're raised, it's the way everybody else believes, and we're social animals. We like to think like the other herd thinks, right? We're like in a pack, and the pack thinks it's good to do a certain thing. It's hard to be different from the pack. It's hard for us to be different from the pack. That's why the tools and the support is so important. That's why you guys being here today is so important. That's right? Because you need this extra knowledge, extra motivation to help you be different from the pack out there who thinks that, because we're thinking differently than other people think. Because the number of people that think it doesn't make it right? So, and the nutritional myths are propagated by the food industry, the drug industry, by the medical industry, and by our government, which is run or paid for by the people who have the most economic power, which control the media, right? What goes into the media and published in the... So in other words, there was a producer from 2020 who was friends with one person who was working on a PR for me, right? Close friends. And they got a whole bunch of producers for 2020 very excited about interviewing a whole slew of our patient success stories. I don't know if Jody, if you were interviewed by this person for 2020, but these people were filmed, they were interviewed, the producers were so excited, they couldn't believe what was going on there, that only people were getting well from these serious illnesses. They were putting this big show together for 2020, and we were spending hours in my office with interviews, with patient interviews, and contacting people, and of course it got to the higher-ups eventually, and the top people in 2020 silenced it and didn't want it shown, right? Because it wasn't supportive of the people who were the advertisers. The same things happened over and over and over again. I'll give you one story after another, including the publication Diabetes Today, published by the American Diabetic Association, who sent me a check for $750 because they heard about a woman who was a school principal, wrote an article in a Principal magazine of how when she went to the emergency room with a complication of diabetes, the emergency room doctor whispered in her ear, "Don't tell anybody I told you this, but get out of here and go see Dr. Fuhrman." So to make a long story short, she comes to see me, loses 60 pounds in 5 months, gets rid of her diabetes, gets feeling back in her legs, writes this article. The American Diabetic Association reads the article. They contact me. They mail me a check. They want an article from me written for the national magazine. I write in the article. I send it in, and they call me back. They want the check back because I presented 4 case histories of people no longer needed diabetic medication. They got well with it. They became non-diabetic without medication. And their position is that diabetes is not curable and you can't get well without medication and that this is not supportive. And I said to the person, well, since these are true stories, I can't fudge them. I can't change the person's story and make it not true. And the person then said to me, yeah, but Eli Lilly is the major advertiser for the magazine. And I said, okay, well, I'll give you a check back, So, but anyway, we got to get to the end here. I got to have time for questions. So here, the point here is, though, that, it's not easy. We have to respect the fact that addictions are serious, and food addictions are serious. And some of you are coming here this week for support, and I empathize with you that this is a difficult thing to do, because the pressures from the outside world are difficult. But let me just make this clear. It's that you are making it difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult. If you make a commitment to do this, no matter what, I'm going to save my life no matter what. I'm going to do it no matter what. See, when you quit smoking, the smoker always wants to come back with, well, I tried to quit, I gave it a try, but my son smashed up the car, my husband almost got fired from his job, we're in economic distress, I had a big argument with my coworker. They always have an excuse, they always have a reason why they're too much under stress to quit. The same thing is true with a person trying to change their diet. They always got to come up to me and say, they always got a reason, an excuse, I'm traveling on a trip, I'm on a business trip, I'm on a cruise, I'm going here, my boss is going to get hard on me, it's too hard at work right now, my coworkers are bringing food into the office, I can't. The point is that all that means is they haven't made the commitment yet. That they're not, they haven't decided to do it. I say, here's the thing. Don't make a decision. Don't decide what you're going to eat. If you are having problems with this and you're not doing it yet, just let me decide what you're going to eat. Don't make any choices. Don't decide whether you're going to like it or not. Don't care what you're going to do. Just do what you're supposed to do and do what I'm telling you to do. Now you could blame me. If you don't lose the weight, it's my fault. Complain to me. If you don't like it after 2 months, tell me about it. But you're not going to like it right away. I can't make you like it at the beginning before you lost your toxic hunger, before you're still in the attic, while you're still going through pain, while you still have the sore throat, while you still can't taste food, while you're still addicted to sugar, while you still don't have the propensity to taste the natural salts and natural vegetables, while your taste buds are 90% deadened. I can't make you like it. You got to get healthy first. Don't make a choice. Don't make decisions. Just do it. And make the decision right now whether you do it or not. It's a yes or no decision, right? And for those of you having trouble going back and forth, make that decision this week and start doing it. And start doing it right now. Start doing it the next meal, which means try to see if you can get hungry for dinner tonight. It's an early dinner, which means how much you're going to eat at lunch. How much should you eat at lunch? You got to figure that out, because if you eat too much, you're not going to be hungry for dinner. You have to limit your intake. Use your intelligence, because if you're not hungry for lunch, you should be eating lunch. Just eat dinner. If you are hungry for lunch and you overeat, you're not going to be hungry for dinner, then don't eat dinner. If you want to be hungry for dinner, eat the right amount of food for lunch. Let's see if you can start to make each meal so much more enjoyable by trying to get in touch with the amount of calories you really do need. And you know what's kind of amazing? It's amazing how little calories you really do need. It's amazing that if you add up the calories, look at me. I'm like, well, I do a lot of exercise. The amount of exercise I'm doing here is not what I usually do. I do a lot more exercise than I'm doing here usually, right? I do a lot of heavy exercising. And it's amazing how little calories I need to eat to maintain my weight, which is at the same weight I'm at. I don't have to eat that much. So in research studies, this was the most effective way to lose weight by any study published in medical history. We put the Atkins diet in there alongside of it, just to show people how the people on the Atkins diet always gain their weight back again with the amount of weight they lose. Where the people who follow a nutritarian diet, as their weight loss slows down, it picks up again, and they keep losing as time goes on. Because this is knowledge-based. It's not based on a fad. But we realize that this is not for everybody, that food is powerfully addicting. Some people would rather die and keep eating the food that they're eating. They'd rather take 20 years off their life, and they have that right. But here's the thing. We don't give cigarettes to 6-year-olds, do we? Because we don't feel they have the intellectual and maturity to make these decisions about consuming addictive substances. But why do we feed them soda? That's just as addicting as cigarettes. Why are all the teenagers addicted to Coca-Cola and they're all becoming diabetic? Why do we go to a soccer game and start feeding them donuts and ice cream and all kinds of artificially colored bags of crap? I don't know what's in the bag. I'll never finish this lecture if I keep going. But here, the point here is that people have the right to commit suicide with food. They have that right. But they have the right to know the science, the choice. They have the right to know the reality of the good science, the good information. And once they can use their best intellect to get this information, they should be here for the week. And then if you're here for the week and hear all this, and you want to go back and live on crap, go do it. You have that right. But at least you made a decision based out of choice, because you were told the right information. But the problem in America is people are told the wrong information, not given any choice. And that's the mission, to give people a choice. And we want to give people more support, so it makes it easier for them, because it's tough, because the subconscious mind doesn't care as much about science. It's emotions, it's feelings, it's losing. The brain wants to maintain its addictions. The brain, the cravings and the physical and subconscious addictive drives take over people's abilities to think rationally and logically and scientific, and they start to defend themselves. The brain is automatically defending their behaviors, defending their food choices, defending the reasons why they shouldn't change. That's what we need to impart with people a lot of information, and you can see how successful this becomes when people are given the correct information. Right? Drug addicts and food addicts look for excuses and rationalization to continue their addictions. So don't come up to me and tell me, I'm going on a business trip next week, how am I going to do this? I'm traveling on an airplane, how am I going to do it? I'm going to say, I don't care what's happening to you. If you make the commitment, you find a way to do it. You find a way, and I'll help you find that way, but you've got to find a way to solve the problem. Not use the difficulty or the challenge as the excuse not to do it. It may be a challenge, but any challenge gives you more of a victory, and when you solve that challenge, gives you more. And as you achieve your good health, you establish a personal victory for yourself. That's one victory, right? Better than winning the Olympics, than Michael Spitz? No. Mark Spitz, no, Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, with his 8 gold medals, got a personal victory for himself, right? But he genetically, he's got a great body for swimming, right? But when you get your health back, you've had a victory that you've really earned. You've solved problems. You've used your best mind. You've earned it. You've earned the respect of the people that care about you, that love you. You set an example for the rest of your people in your environment. You become a respectable personal role model for other people to improve their health, and other people improve their health because you improved your health, and you get a victory not of just once, your own personal victory, more than Michael Spitz does. You get this victory because you have help other people achieve their victory as well, which is even better than your own victory. It's really so, there's so much in here for people to want to do this. And we're saying here that instead of looking for excuses, it starts with a decision to do it no matter what. That's what you got to do. You got to just decide to do it. And a period of complete abstinence is the only effective intervention to rid addiction. It's the only thing effective. So if you're a food addict and you're addicted to sugar, got to stop eating the sugar. You can't wean down on cigarettes and not still be an addict. You're just going to be craving all the time. Just stop the smoking completely. And there are some people here this week that made the decision and are doing it completely. They're off smoking. So the daily prescription, let's just review this again. A daily prescription, the minimum of what people should do, of course, is eat some beans every day, like a half cup of beans every day, at least 3 fresh fruits a day, at least an ounce of raw nuts and seeds a day, at least 1 large salad a day, at least 1 large serving of steamed green vegetables a day, and maybe some mushrooms or onions, because we're talking about it in a cancer lecture of how to prevent cancer coming up in the week. And how many calories are on this chart if you ate all that food? Not that many. Let's see, half a cup of beans, 80 calories, 3 fresh fruits, 60 calories each, it's 250, ounce of nuts and seeds, another 150, 175, right? 500, another salad, 50 calories, say 800 calories, that's 600, right? Double so person green vegetables, another 100 calories, and some mushrooms we're probably under 800 calories right here. Not saying this is all you eat, but try to get a good percentage of those. Know where your nutrient-rich anti-cancer superfoods are and try to construct your diet so you're getting the most protective foods, at least getting the most protective foods into your diet each day. And I think all of America should be eating this way. Whether they want to eat donuts, bagels, barbecued ribs, and cheesecake, They at least should do this, and you'd be amazed if everybody in America started doing this. They'd gradually lose their desire to lose the cheesecake and the barbecued ribs and the croissants, right? They'd start losing their toxic hunger. Their taste buds would start changing. They would start to prefer the flavors of natural foods. They'd automatically start moving in this right direction, and they'd start to understand the whole life being laid open to them for more opportunity and pleasure by eating healthy foods. In today's society, it takes the mindset of a champion. You got to have determination, initiative, perseverance. Perseverance, because when you first start doing it, you feel worse. You don't feel better in the beginning, you actually feel worse. And that's called a detoxification. And sometimes people 4 to 6 weeks later, because their body has been flooded with nutrients for a month, and 4 to 6 weeks later, they can go into a secondary cycle of detox. Now that their body has been made healthier, and they'll start to have a period for a few days where they'll feel ill, headachy, feverish, irritable, as the body is now going into a deeper stage of cleaning. And repetition. You have to practice. You have to actually eat healthfully, make the recipes, do it, repeat it over and over again to be better at doing it, because the body likes what it's used to doing. It likes to eat what it's used to eating. And the correct attitude, because you have to work for it over time, because sometimes your allergies don't go, your hay fever, your runny nose, your itchiness, your skin rashes, sometimes your diseases don't go away right away when you change your diet. It takes time. I've seen patients who've been allergic to cats and pollen and dogs and things like that, and foods that after a year of doing this still had their allergies. After 2 years, they were gone though. They might have given up after a year, not knowing if the 2 years it would go away. And you're not just doing it. So there's so many benefits here that you do achieve benefits right away, but the long-term benefits come a long time, because it takes a long time for the body to build up the level of nutrients in your tissues. So even after doing a nutritarian diet for 6 months, the level of nutrients in your tissues are not as high as a person doing a nutritarian diet for 2 years. And the amount of anti-cancer potential and disease potential in your body is still not ideal after 6 months of eating this way. It takes longer than 6 months. Because I measure the nutrients in people's tissues. Oh, how many people got their antioxidant phytochemical score measured here? Oh, a lot of you already. So a lot of you know that sometimes eating the diet perfectly healthy for 3 or 4 months, it's not going to be as high as it would have been. Somebody doing it longer, right? It takes time. When you first start out, you're a white belt. People feel ill after eating healthy. That goes away in a couple of weeks. They start to feel better. They start to enjoy healthy eating. They start to develop a taste for it. They still like their old stuff they're missing. They're still emotionally addicted to their other foods, but they're also enjoying the healthy foods. But they persevere, and eventually they start to get in touch with true hunger, and they start to enjoy not overeating. They still didn't thinking about the things they're giving up in the back of their mind, but at least they're enjoying the healthy foods more, and they're living the diet and seeing the benefits. But they do this for 3, 4, 5, or 6 months, and now what happens? They become a black belt. Now don't forget, when you're a white belt, you felt ill at the beginning. But now you're a black belt, you figure, you know what? I've eaten healthy for like 9 months straight. I've dropped 70 pounds. I feel like amazing, Might as well go to the restaurant and have some barbecued ribs and cheesecake with ice cream on top. I can afford to do it. I'll go right back on the diet again. I know what I'm doing. Because I miss that stuff. Once in a while it's not going to kill me, and they're right. Once in a while it's not going to kill you. Might as well have it. They have it, and as they're eating their barbecued ribs and their cheesecake, and they're saying to themselves, you know what? I don't like it as much as I thought I'd like it. I thought I was missing this. I thought I was missing until I ate it, but now that I'm eating it, it's like too strongly flavored. It's like, ugh, it's like greasy. It's too salty. I can't eat it. They go home, and they're up all night. Stomach's killing them. They're on their diarrhea. Feel like they want to vomit. They're up all night drinking water. They weigh themselves the next morning. They drop 3 pounds, still in stomach pain. They start to realize that now their body is so healthy that it actually is actively objecting to any stress on the integrity and cleanliness of its tissues. They don't tolerate the junk anymore. See, at the beginning when they were a white belt, they didn't tolerate healthy food because they didn't feel well to eat healthy. They need their meat. They need their grease. But now that they're really a healthy person, they no longer can smoke cigarettes without impunity. They could, when you take that first shot of heroin, when you're 16 years old, you just take a little bit, makes you feel high. After 20 years of use, the dose that now you could take to make you high might be 20 times the dose. And if you had used that dose back years ago, it would have killed you. Now you just barely get high from it. As you abuse your body over the years, you tolerate garbage in your tissues more. And the more waste you can tolerate, the more unhealthy you are. The smoker can smoke constantly all day long and not even cough. They stop smoking, they feel worse. As you get healthier, your level of toleration for garbage in your body goes down. So now when you try to go off your diet, you don't feel well immediately. And you're not going to like it, and you're not going to feel like you even want to have it. You go to Carvel ice cream and have a vanilla Carvel ice cream that you used to like, and your taste buds are now so sensitive that you can actually taste the bleach they used to clean the machine 2 days ago. And you could say, oh, I taste the chemicals, there's bleach in there. It's disgusting, and it's too sweet. You know, you'd rather go home and have your own ice cream that you made by blending in some mango with some frozen mango with a little coconut, shredded coconut, and lemon, you know, with mixed together, and you enjoy your healthy version. You don't even like the chemicalized fast food version anymore because it doesn't even taste good to you anymore. So when you're black belt, you actually prefer to eat healthfully. This is the diet style you like the best and you enjoy it the most. And so it reinforces yourself. So the point is you have to do it and you'll get there. What makes it unique is nutrient per calorie density is important for devising and recommending for the food plan, for designing a diet style. We have to use that tool for the most effective approach for weight loss, for reversing disease. Therapeutically, it's effective for reversing autoimmune conditions and heart disease and asthma and high blood pressure and lowering cholesterol, and for optimizing longevity. There can't be 10 different ideal diet styles. There has to be different graduations of diets, some of which are better than the average diet, and as they get better and better, there has to be a criteria what makes a diet the best. And what makes a diet the best means that it should be the most effective for disease reversing, and the most effective for increasing longevity, and the most effective for people achieving their ideal weight permanently. And clearly, maybe it's not for everybody, but it still should be recognized as what the ideal is, so at least there's no confusion in society about nutrition. This is what we need. We need clarity to remove confusion and direct people to exactly what are the factors that makes a diet style, makes food most favorable. Low nutrient eating is toxic eating. It leads to a buildup of toxic metabolites in the body. And we've been well established in the scientific literature that people have a tendency to become overweight, build up more toxins in their body in response to low nutrient eating. And they get more symptoms of uncomfortable symptoms, of ill symptoms when they don't overeat. These toxins are measurable in the urine. These inflammatory mediators are measurable, and we actually can detect more inflammatory and toxic metabolites in people of a natural tendency to be more overweight. This is not a hypothesis. It's at this point, it's scientific, and you could say it's been proven. At least, and multiple factors, emotional issues, nutrients, volume, calories, addictive substances like salt, oil, artificial sweeteners, all affect eating drives and satiation and must be considered to curtail overeating behavior. And assuring nutritional excellence means meeting each person's unique nutritional needs, which we're going to continue to talk about as the week progresses.
About 20 years ago, I had a hysterectomy, and I've been on hormone replacement therapy all this time. I feel like a ticking time bomb. But then developed thyroid problems about 5 years ago. I did a lot of research over the last 5 years, and everything I come back to comes back to your program being the most sensible, and it's helped me the most. But will I ever be able to get off the thyroid medication and the hormone medication?
Well, we want you to use the amount of hormone replacement that's equivalent to a person who's the levels of a healthy person would produce. So that could be measurable, and that could be measured, but I think that, and just like the levels go down as a person goes through menopause, your levels can go down and as to duplicate a natural menopause. So the amount might be somewhat lower than you think you need, and as you're eating healthier and getting healthier, you might find you need less and less. Okay. But the likelihood of you getting off your thyroid medication completely is very unlikely. Very unlikely. Because unless we catch a person in the early stages of autoimmune thyroiditis, or in the first year of when they have the thyroid problem, it's rare that they can reverse their thyroid problem completely, because once those cells, those thyroid-producing cells in the thyroid are no longer functioning, they don't come back.
I wish I'd have known this
But-
information before, because I see the direct correlation to the thyroid issues and the adrenal fatigue and all those things.
But it
being-
doesn't mean you can't be in magnificent health just because
Absolutely.
you're requiring a little bit of medication. So
Correct.
think of the good things, that how much you're going to need a little bit of medication still, but you still can be in great health.
Right, and I'm starting to feel 1,000% better. And the last thing, could you address kidney stones a little bit? Because we've got a brother-in-law that's just struggling with horrendous problems, and we haven't been able to quite convince him that the dietary changes would make a huge difference.
Yeah, because kidney stones, there are different types of stones people's forms, and the type of recommendations we give are somewhat different for different stone formers, but we measure their urine for the content of calcium, oxalic acid, and uric acid, and we monitor their diet and change it accordingly. And we give, for example, people, we talked about how beans promote the good bacteria in the digestive tract, and promoting the healthy bacteria binds oxalic acid, it prevents stone formation, eating a diet that has the plant protein instead of animal protein. So yes, we have a whole protocol for kidney stones, and this person could come, for people with diseases and issues that need to be more modified and give advice specifically for them with a little more intervention. It's a perfect way he should join the member site.
On the member side, okay.
Because a book's not enough for him. He has to then ask myself or Dr. Clapper or one of our medical experts what he has to do different or additional to the diet.
That deep belly fat, is there any special idea of how to get rid of it?
Yes, that's what I mentioned it yesterday. I'm talking about it more later. We're going to talk about it in the cancer lecture, and the word is angiogenesis inhibitors. And that deep belly fat has a blood supply that shouldn't be there. You develop blood vessels to fuel this fat source, and you're putting nutrients into your belly that shouldn't be putting there. That should be used for your muscles and your heart and your brain. And when you eat onions and mushrooms in particular, they have angiogenesis inhibitors in them that help cause atrophy of the blood vessels that feed the fat, and it helps you shrink belly fat. So we're talking about designing a diet with what you learned today about hunger, in combination with the superfoods that prevent cancer, will help reduce the nutrient delivery to the deep belly fat and help you rid it successfully.
Hi, 2 questions for you and the black belts. Do you ever have cravings for high density calorie foods like extra nuts and extra dates or something? Or is that considered an addiction? And then the second question is to comment on, is dairy, even if it's just whey protein, can that be one of the triggers for toxic eating?
Yes, so both your questions are relevant, and the answer is that when you're healthy, you don't get cravings at all. You get hungry, and you want to eat more calories because you're hungry. And you want to eat more concentrated calories because you're exercising a lot and because you need them for your activities, not because you have food cravings. You like it, and you want to be able to go back out and play basketball. And have your fun in your life. That's why you want the calories. You can stay away from eating for a long enough time to enjoy your life, but not because you get food cravings. The concentrated proteins we mentioned yesterday are some of the foods that we really should try to avoid, because as we go to very high concentrations of protein, including isolated soy protein and whey protein, and we raise IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor 1, which is the hormone most closely correlated with incidence of breast cancer and prostate cancer.
I like to have a smoothie every morning, and I'm just wondering if I put spinach in there, and now I'm going to start adding raw oatmeal. And does something happen in digestion that, we're not actually chewing these things? If we're just drinking them, is there a difference?
Yes and no. I mean, certainly, if you were, we want people to avoid fruit juices and not have so many liquid sweets. So the good thing is that when you blend it, you're not removing the fiber, you're just separating a little bit, so it's not really the same as removing it. It's better than removing it, right? Maybe not quite as perfect as chewing it, but the thing is that we try to add vegetables into those shakes, so it's not as sugary as if you just had the whole fruit.
Right.
So you're mixing fruits and vegetables together, and I'm recommending that I like spinach in shakes, but that we want to have a variety, and sometimes cut the spinach with lettuce or other greens like kale or collards, because the other greens have less oxalic acid and more availability of calcium, and they have other benefits. So when possible, I want you not to use spinach as your primary source of greens.
So kale.
Kale and lettuce, and Boston lettuce is very good in a shake like that. Mosh lettuce is excellent in a shake. It's very bland and smooth in a shake with a great flavor. So to use different things other than just spinach.
Okay. And then I have a friend who has had a variety of health problems. He's had diabetes, high blood pressure, and he ended up getting gastric bypass surgery. His doctor recommended it because of his high weight to help with these other things. And then he ended up having bladder cancer, and now he's on dialysis.
Oh my goodness.
He just got all these stents put in his heart. And now because he's on this dialysis, he can't eat foods that are really healthy. They're saying you can't eat that because you're dialysis. You can't eat that. You can't, all these healthy foods. I mean, is there any hope for people that are that far gone? If you're actually on dialysis and they're telling you, no, you can't eat these healthier foods because it'll affect your dialysis?
Yes, there's some hope we can make them live longer, but we're not going to get them off dialysis because once they're on dialysis, their kidney is usually practically dead. See, with any organ, there's some gray area, like when you have a heart attack, part of the heart dies permanently, but there's some area of the heart that's hibernating. It's called hibernating myocardium. That's not quite dead yet, and through healthy eating and good oxygenation, it comes back to life. So the amount of heart that wasn't functioning becomes smaller, and more of the heart functions again. And when you have a bad kidney, where you're not on dialysis yet, and you're starting to go into kidney failure, I have incredible results with these people getting back to their normal kidney again because part of their kidney wasn't totally destroyed. It was hibernating or injured, but not totally dead yet. But once you're on dialysis, it's usually at a point where there's so much dead tissue there that it's too late for them to come back and get well again.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I spent 30 years in the Navy, in Navy Reserve, and every 6 months we would have a physical readiness test, and we would get our body fat measured. So every 6 months it would go up and down for many years, and then I've lost 60 pounds and then gained 60 pounds. Anyway, so I've had trouble with cycling. Is there any particular thing that I ought to be aware of as I start this program?
Yeah, but I think, though, that what you're hearing today and what you're hearing throughout the week is that this is a program you're not merely here for weight loss. It's much bigger than weight loss.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important to consider that even if you didn't lose weight, you should do it anyway. And once you have that mentality, that this is just called a no-brainer, you just got to do it, the weight issue melts away because everything comes together into one pie, and it becomes the way you define yourself as this is the way you're going to live for the rest of your life because you want the best, the highest quality, most pleasurable life. And so you're not doing this temporarily. This is a permanent change in your life. And you'll have much more pleasurable, enjoyable, healthy, and worthwhile life because of it. So I'm happy, I'm excited you're on board with us.
All right, thank you.
Sure.